you had to pick just one cartridge to fill all your future Western hunting needs, would it be a 6.8 Western or a 7mm PRC? Which is better? What are the differences? And what has all the recent upscuttle been about on that 7mm PRC? Lots of rumors flying there, folks. So today, that's what we're going to explore. Ron Spomer has asked me to compare the two cartridges and address some of their characteristics and their potential future. So let's start with some specifications, some basic fundamental differences between the two. I've got them sitting right here in front of me, and in short, the biggest differences are twofold. The 7mm PRC is a standard 30-06 length cartridge, 3.34 inches maximum overall length, while the 6.8 Western is almost a true short-action cartridge. Overall maximum length of the 6.8 Western is 2.955, basically not quite 3 inches long. Now, an honest-to-goodness short-action cartridge such as the 308 typically maxes out at 2.8 inches, so there are those who now call this short magnum family cartridges kind of an intermediate length cartridge. But for our, fundamental purposes of discussing the two, we can say one's a standard length, one's a short action cartridge. The next real big difference is bullet diameter, but folks, it's actually not real big. The 7mm PRC, of course, is a 7mm caliber cartridge. That's 2.84 on the decimal scale, whereas the 6.8 Western cartridge, that's 6.8 millimeters, right? It's 0.277 inch on the decimal scale. So it's basically a 270 caliber cartridge. Most of you are probably aware of this. The 7mm PRC has a water carrying capacity, if you fill it right up to the top, just to measure internal capacity, right, of 82 grains in weight of water. Sounds funny, doesn't it? This isn't granules. Grains is a weight measurement. There's 7,000 grains per pound. It's a very fine weight measurement, typically used for weighing bullets and powder charges. We can also use it to weigh water in order to determine the internal carrying capacity of a cartridge case. So that's 82 grains on the 7mm PRC. Comparatively, it's 74 grains on the 6.8 Western. Not as far behind as you might think. That's only 8 grains less, right? So what is that? Just about 10% less powder capacity in the short action 6.8 Western than in the 7mm PRC. Now, both of them were launched with what we'll call heavy for caliber bullets. And in the 7mm PRC, some quite heavy for caliber bullets, namely the 180 grain ELD match bullet by Hornady. Now that's one of the most aerodynamic projectiles factory loaded on the market today. It's got a G1BC, I believe it's 0.797 on the G1BC scale. So that's right there at 8, right? Previously, that's a number that was only achievable by the really long, super aerodynamic 338 bullets and so forth. Really impressive for a factory-loaded projectile. Now, most of the hunting bullets in the 7mm PRC are going to be a bit lower, right? Including this 175 grain ELDX bullet that I've got in front of me. It's got a BC in the high 6s, so I think it's right around 670 on the G1 scale. Still admirable, right? Don't quote me on those numbers. I didn't write them down, but that's going to be real close. The 6.8 Western, on the other hand, was not factory loaded from its introduction with any match type bullets and nothing that's absolutely optimized for high BC. The most popular and probably the most inherently accurate bullet in the 6.8 Western is the 175 grain long range pro hunter bullet as loaded in Browning ammunition. That's actually made by Sierra, and it's a modified version of the tipped Game King bullet that's built to Browning specifications. And it's technically a little more aerodynamic than the 175 grain standard tipped Game King bullet that Sierra offers for sale. That bullet, by the way, is a great component bullet for hand loaders, loading the 6.8 Western, but it is indeed just a little bit short of the factory loaded option that's only available through Browning in terms of aerodynamics. Still a great bullet. What is the BC on that? It's 0.615, 616, somewhere in there. The other load initially launched in the 6.8 Western was the 165 grain AccuBond long-range bullet as loaded by Winchester in its Expedition long-range line. And that bullet exited the muzzle a little faster and had, at least the advertised ballistic coefficient, was equivalent to that of the 175 Sierra bullet. So for hunters, it was kind of a matter of pick the bullet that shoots best in your rifle. And if you're a bit lucky, the AccuBond will shoot best because it's got an equivalent BC, can be pushed a little faster, and is bonded. It's got a bonded core construction, so it's a little bit tougher, better for use on elk and so forth. What about real world performance now? So here's where we start getting into some interesting stuff, some differences that maybe shooters didn't really expect, and the manufacturers certainly didn't necessarily plan for. The 6.8 Western was launched by Browning and Winchester in a joint combined effort between Winchester Browning Firearms and Winchester and Browning Ammunition, all of which are actually kind of separate entities. But as a team, they launched these, and at this point, there's about 5 different factory loads available. We'll talk more about that here in a bit. The ammunition has always performed up to factory advertised specifications. So that 175 grain long-range pro load loaded by Browning is going to average 2,830 to 2,875 feet per second in most rifles, depending on barrel length. If you got a shorter barrel, it might be a bit less, 2,750 feet per second or so. The others are quite similar, right? This is a cartridge that's got a very easy to balance propellant to bore diameter capacity ratio. What I mean by that is it's not hard to find a burn rate type of propellant that performs really well in the 6.8 Western. The 7mm PRC, on the other hand, is advertised to push the 175 and 180 grain bullets north of 2,900 feet per second. In fact, the 175 grain bullet is supposed to hit 3,000 feet per second. That's kind of a magic number, right? With 24-inch barrels. And it hasn't been doing that in factory ammunition. Now, initially it did, but the trouble is the gunpowder that provides the best performance in the 7mm PRC is sourced out of Scandinavia. And supply chains coming from Scandinavia have been real thin the last couple of years due to various influences ranging from our COVID pandemic to the war in Ukraine. A lot of different things have bottlenecked that supply chain. So the unfortunate reaction to that is that now the 7mm PRC is being loaded by Hornady with some gunpowders that provide a suitable level of accuracy, but about 100 feet per second, give or take, less speed. And that's kind of disenchanting to a lot of shooters, right? Now, Hornady could have opted for other propellants that pushed 7mm PRC bullets just as fast, but they didn't provide the broad spectrum consistency and accuracy that Hornady pretty well demands in its precision hunter and its matched lines of ammunition. So they opted instead for the consistent accuracy. I, for one, I'm okay with that. It's not optimal, right? But as time goes on, those other propellants that are, the stuff that really helps the 7mm PRC stand up and do what it's supposed to do, they'll come back. And meanwhile, hand loaders can really get the best out of the 7mm PRC cartridge. I've used H1000 Hodgdon's powder with super good results, getting all the speed you could want out of the cartridge and really, really good accuracy. The 6.8 Western is similarly easy to hand load for really top performance. Different family of cartridges, propellants there, but pretty easy to hand load. And on the plus side, there are now bullets from Berger and Hammer and Badlands and Barnes bullets, and of course Sierra, Nosler. There's a lot of different 270 diameter bullets that are optimized for the fast rifling twist rate in the 6.8 Western, heavy for caliber, really helps hand loaders get the best the cartridge has to offer. That reminds me, there's a specification of both of these cartridges that I forgot to mention earlier. They both have a relatively fast 1 in 8 rifling twist rate. So every time the bullet travels 8 inches down the barrel, it's made one full rotation. This is kind of the magic optimal twist rate for modern high BC bullets in a lot of different cartridges, including these two. So it really helps shooters get the best long range performance out of these two. Let's talk a little bit more, since we mentioned component bullets available for the 6.8 Western. There is an advantage for the 7mm PRC that's undeniable, and that is that there is a plethora of good 7mm projectiles on the market. And for decades, they've been building match and long-range projectiles for the 7mm bore diameter, right? So there's just a huge selection for hand loaders to work with, more so by a large, significant margin than for the 6.8 Western. Another big advantage to the 7mm PRC, which, by the way, has enjoyed the single most successful cartridge launch I've ever witnessed in my life, and I've been following cartridge launches for 40 years or more. Just phenomenally successful and adopted by manufacturers and consumers with near frenzied enthusiasm. It's actually been pretty cool to watch. The 7 PRC is already available in something well north of 10 or 12 different factory offerings. Hornady has 3, of course: the 180 ELD Match, the 175 grain ELDX, the 160 grain CX bullet, an all monometal bullet, which is fantastic for hunting game bigger than deer, your elk species, your bigger African plains game, so forth. Wonderful for that. Federal has several different loads. They are loading the 175 Hornady ELDX. They're loading their own 170 grain terminal ascent and 155 grain terminal ascents. They're loading a couple others as well, as Fusion. The Federal Fusion line has a 7 PRC load. Remington has a 7 PRC load. Weatherby offers 3 different 7mm PRC loads now in its factory ammunition. Nosler has the 175 grain Nosler AccuBond long range. They're just a huge bunch of wonderful factory ammunition available for the 7 PRC, in addition to that broad spectrum of component bullets available to hand loaders. So, a little bit of a different introduction and adoption dynamic between the two cartridges here. That said, right at the moment, if you want to get the best factory ammo performance out of the two, you're probably better leaning on the 6.8 Western, or maybe some of the boutique ammunition loaders that are able to source the really special powder that gives the 7 PRC what it needs. But that's kind of up to you and what your rifle shoots best. Again, hand loading is the way to go if you can do it, folks. How about rifle availability? Well, Browning and Winchester both build a lot of 6.8 Westerns. You can get it in a Model 70 Winchester. You can get it in XPR. In the Browning line, you can get it in AB3 and mostly in the X-Bolt. There's just a big, beautiful selection of X-Bolt rifles. My go-to is an X-Bolt Speed SR suppressor ready. I've got one right here. I'm going to take this rifle to Africa this year. It's topped with one of Leupold's new Mark IV HD scopes. It's got the configurable stock that Browning is now putting on their rifles. It's sleek. It's just a beautifully designed rifle. This one is way more accurate than a rifle in that $1,200 to $1,400 price bracket should be. It shoots almost everything into 3/4 of an inch and loads that it really likes into less than that. Factory stuff, right? Super impressive. So Browning Winchester really supporting the cartridge, the 6.8 Western cartridge in factory ammunition. And a bunch of what I'll call semi-custom rifle makers, including like Christensen Arms and so forth, are building 6.8 Westerns. I haven't seen a lot of adoption in other rifles ranging from, the Savages and Mossbergs right up to the ultra premium stuff by Gunworks, Proof Research, and so forth. Usually the true custom guys, of course, Altera Arms and whatnot, will build anything you want. So 6.8 Westerns are certainly flowing out of their manufacturing facilities. The 7mm PRC, on the other hand, is available in just about everything that's not made in Europe at this point, right? You can get them in Mossbergs right up to including the Gunworks and Proof Research and everything in between. Yeah, I can hardly think of a manufacturer, especially an American manufacturer, that's not chambering the 7mm PRC already. So it does have that edge as well. On the shelves in gun stores, what are you most likely to find? You're going to find at least probably 2 up to 5 different 6.8 Western loads and maybe a couple of different 6.8 Western rifles. You'll probably find 1 or 2, maybe all 3 Hornady loads, 1 or 2 Federal loads, maybe the Remington Fusion load, maybe some of the Weatherby ammo. So it's more readily available. Same thing with rifles. You're probably going to find a very broad selection of 7mm PRC rifles on the shelves at your local dealer. So it does have that advantage. Now, question we have to ask then, which cartridge is better? I have to give the 7mm PRC the nod for availability. It just is what it is. That's not to say that the 6.8 Western is dying out. And this recent kind of controversy over 7mm PRC performance not reaching factory advertised numbers, and usually not even close, well, it's kind of given the 6.8 Western a boost. I love the cartridge, so that makes me happy. I really think both 100% deserve to survive and thrive going into the future. And I own and use both, love them both. If I was setting a kid or a recoil-sensitive shooter up with a cartridge that's going to give really good extended range capability at a very modest level of recoil, I would definitely opt for the 6.8 Western. It's a really good choice for that. Up to and including elk size game, just a terrific cartridge. It's worth just circling back, of course, to that controversy a little bit. Currently, to get the best that the 7mm PRC has to offer, hand load it. And if you're not a hand loader, I'm going to just kind of chuckle and say either be happy with the really good levels of accuracy that the Hornady ammunition provides, or if you need the velocity, look to Federal ammunition currently. Maybe that 170 grain terminal ascent bullet, that's probably, in my opinion, the most versatile, capable, best broad spectrum 7mm PRC load on the market today. Will give you really good velocity, very good accuracy as well. And that terminal ascent bullet, if you're not familiar, folks, with that, do a little bit of research. It gives fantastic on-impact performance from right at the muzzle out to some pretty scandalous distances, further than most of us have any business shooting. So with that, let's go to the range, and I'm going to do a little bit of shooting with both cartridges. I'll take this Browning rifle here, and I'm going to take Gunworks Nexus with a 20-inch barrel, shooting current, low velocity 7mm PRC ammunition into tiny little groups that I'm getting ready to take to an NRL Hunter competition soon. But before I do that, I want to show you one other rifle, kind of a newer model that I've recently got finished reviewing. Wonderful rifle that I took to New Zealand and hunted with this spring. This is Weatherby's Model 307 Alpine CT in 7mm PRC. It's about a $2,200 advertised retail rifle. It's probably going to be less than $2,000 on your local dealer's shelves. Comes with a very accurate carbon fiber out barrel, a super light, super rigid, strong carbon fiber stock by Peak 44, and a custom level Remington 700 type action being built right here in America by Weatherby currently. Good trigger tech trigger. This is a very accurate rifle, a good muzzle brake, just has all the bells and whistles I really like, and shoots with custom and semi-custom rifles costing 2 and 3 times as much as it does. So there's just a couple of different really good options in those two cartridges that perform very well up to that modern level of expectations with high performance, high precision, modern hunting cartridges. And now we're off to the range.
Now, even though the 7mm PRC is in performance a true Magnum 7mm cartridge, it's efficient enough and inherently accurate enough that it works well in long-range competition. Last year I took this rifle, it's a Gunworks Nexus with a 20-inch barrel, to the Sheep Mountain NRL Hunter competition in Cody, Wyoming, and I actually took third in the light rifle category with factory ammunition. This is Hornady's 180 grain match load, super high BC bullet. This is actually current ammo, and it's loaded with propellant that's not getting that top velocity that the cartridge is capable of, but it is pretty darn accurate. And I'm going back to the match this year. Maybe shooting a different rifle, but as a backup, I'm getting this one ready. So let's see what kind of groups we can shoot with factory ammo in this 7 PRC at 100 yards, just to check our zero real quick. Let's stretch it out now. Shoot a few still targets at longer distance. All right, I've checked my zero at 100 yards. Now I'm going to use these fancy Revic range-finding binoculars with a ballistic braid inside to range my target and generate a ballistic solution. Dial that into my turret here. Take a couple shots at 400 yards on a small steel target. We'll see how ready I am for the match this weekend. Bingo. 2 out of 3. Let's try one more. See if we run all 3. That'll do. 3 in a row at 400 yards. Mild enough recoil with this system that I am watching my bullets impact that steel target through my scope. All right, at the range now with the 6.8 Western. And although this rifle shoots the 175 grain tipped Game King bullet in Browning's Pro Hunter, Long Range Pro Hunter load best, it also shoots Winchester's Copper Impact 162 grain bullet pretty darn well. And I'm leaving for Africa soon, and I want to take the Copper Impact load in case I get a chance on something big bodied like eland, where you need a lot of penetration to effectively and ethically take that animal. So I'm going to just check my 100-yard zero with this rifle, and then we'll stretch it out a little bit. Watch as I shoot how minimum the recoil on this rifle is in 6.8 Western. All right, I've just validated my 0 on 100 yards, shot a group I'm really happy with. It's got to be pushing a 1/2 inch. Factory ammo, factory production rifle, right? The new X-Bolt 2 speed suppressor ready rifle. We're going to stretch it out a little bit now, see what I can hit at 400 yards, see if I'm ready to take this rifle plains game hunting in Africa. That's a good sound. Ta-da! One more. We'll see if we can run it 3 for 3 like we did with the 7mm PRC. Whack! Hard to have more fun than that.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. It's been fun. I love talking about cartridges. As Ron Spomer would say, hunt honest and shoot straight. I'm Joseph Von Benedict with the Backcountry Hunting Podcast, and I will see you in the backcountry.